As you're listening, tell me if you felt this way at any point in the last year. Like nothing's working the way you want it to. Like the law of attraction isn't working the way you want it to. You find yourself focusing on the stress, focusing on the desire for something, which I talked about in episode 45 on overcoming resistance, that when you focus on what you want, you inherently admit there's a lack. And the universe responds to that intention by giving more lack. You're questioning what you're doing and if you even want to do it anymore. Have you or are you feeling like what you've been sold isn't working for you, but it's hard to see how you can do it any other way?
Many people want to navigate life with peace and joy, but struggle to connect to their intuition. They find themselves overwhelmed, burned out, and frustrated. My name is Francesca Phillips, and I'm obsessed with spirituality and psychology and how the two can intersect to help you live a successful and intuitive life. I believe each of us can accomplish amazing things through balance and healthy habits instead of burnout. Consider this your go-to resource for where spiritual wellness and mindful productivity meets practical wisdom. If you're craving positivity and want to know how to find the answers within instead of searching endlessly without, then you're in the right place. Get ready to feel supported and inspired. This is the Good Space Podcast.
You're listening to the Good Space Podcast, episode number 47, 5 Beliefs That Sabotage Your Ability to Trust Yourself. Before we dive in, I want to give my warm appreciation to our reviewer of the week, A. Heeg. And they say, the Good Space is my favorite resource for growing my spiritual practice. The podcast, the newsletter, and Instagram are all well curated, practical, and so needed. Francesca is a kind, wise, light-filled soul and always provides actionable steps to make spirituality more accessible. I particularly love her affirmations at the end of each episode. A. Heeg, I'm so happy you enjoy our newsletter and podcast and Instagram. We will definitely keep those affirmations coming and appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us. And I appreciate you saying those kind things about me. You made my whole day. Thank you for being such a wonderful part of the Good Space community.
If you want to be highlighted in an upcoming episode and help further the mission of the Good Space, make sure to subscribe and give us a review on Apple Podcasts so I can then highlight your review in an upcoming episode. It only takes a minute. You can pause the episode and come right back. Make sure to screenshot this episode on your phone and tag us on your Instagram story at @FindYourGoodSpace, #TheGoodSpace, to let me know that you're joining in today, as you know that I love to share those screenshots on our stories too.
Today's topic felt important to talk about because I'm going through a season of discovery, and a few listeners in the Good Space community told me they are too. And quite frankly, I've had a few friends as well going through this same kind of emotional, spiritual, energetic shift in the work that they're doing. And I really felt like this was something we needed to talk about. So after going super hard focusing on growth last year, I started recognizing the conditioning and stories that I've been sold about the life I'm supposed to live. First, it was to get good grades, land a corporate job, get married, buy the house, adopt the dog, have the kids, and so on. And that wasn't even close to the life that I had after high school. And for years, I thought something was wrong with me. That something was wrong for me not having the ducks in a row and having that path. And then even after I embraced my non-traditional path and owned the role of entrepreneur and creative, there were so many voices telling me to do a course, mastermind, group coaching, one-on-one coaching. And it often felt like pressure because I felt there was no other way. So I almost played this game with myself where, because there is no other way, I can't admit that I don't feel aligned doing those things, but what other choice do I have? So I put a lot of effort into creating certain offerings, even after feeling misaligned, because that's what I thought I'm supposed to do. So you see this pattern here of supposed to, should. Those are all inherent feelings of guilt and feelings of not enoughness. And so feeling like you have to find the answer outside of yourself. So I ended up being unsuccessful anyway, even though I tried all those things because my heart wasn't in it. And for years, I approached this as something being wrong with me. But the truth is, it's not you or me that's wrong. It's the environment. I can't wait to talk more about this in belief 3, but just so you know, it's not you. Each of us vary. We're different. We have different likes, dislikes, and how we thrive. We all thrive differently. There are so many different ways to live life and to make an impact that it's okay if your way isn't the same way as someone else's. The point is, I believed there was a right and a wrong way to live my life. A good friend of mine would point it out, and it took me years to finally get it. She would say, "You're thinking there's a right or wrong way to live. There's not. Just make a decision and go." To be honest, I felt trapped and fearful that if I didn't have a crazy amount of followers on Instagram or wasn't leveling up to 6 figures, then I'm a failure. So I put these online experts on a pedestal. And it wasn't until I all but burned out and wanted to quit everything and live in a remote village in Germany that I surrendered. That's the thing about having a divine, all-powerful soul inside of you. It doesn't change, and it doesn't care about trends or what someone else is doing. It's plugged into the magnificent source of the universe and sees no limits. So if you're fighting against its nature, your soul will let you know. It's like when Oprah said that the minute she learned how to align the desires of her personality, which is the ego, to the desires of her soul, she acted with true power and purpose. So at this moment, I decided I needed to pause and let myself listen within for what's right and remove any outside noise. So I wrapped up every obligation I had said yes to that didn't feel aligned, then committed to saying no to absolutely everything else. Only a yes if it felt like a hell yes. I stopped moving forward with other things in my business and got super still, letting myself feel which conditioned beliefs didn't feel right anymore. It was hard. I worked on being honest and letting go of what felt misaligned, and it wasn't easy. It requires having conscious awareness in each moment and questioning the intention behind every choice. But it's only hardest at the beginning when you're retraining your mind, and then it gets better once the habit kicks in. You learn to start trusting yourself more every time you make a decision from the soul. It gets easier and easier with time. As you're listening, tell me if you felt this way at any point in the last year. Like nothing's working the way you want it to. Like the law of attraction isn't working the way you want it to. You find yourself focusing on the stress, focusing on the desire for something, which I talked about in episode 45 on overcoming resistance, that when you focus on what you want, you inherently admit there's a lack. And the universe responds to that intention by giving more lack. You're questioning what you're doing and if you even want to do it anymore. Have you or are you feeling like what you've been sold isn't working for you, but it's hard to see how you can do it any other way? I am with you. I am in this exact same journey as we speak, and I can tell you there is another way. These feelings of discomfort are trying to communicate with us. When someone is misaligned with their soul's true purpose, they'll feel that discomfort and they'll see that discord manifesting in their life. Rather than feel ashamed or scared when we see evidence that things aren't working out, let's practice trusting these emotional indicators and have a relationship of curiosity with them instead of resistance or fear. Something I had to take a lot of time to learn, but I promise it's possible. Let yourself become curious and non-judgmental towards your experience and see what revelations bubble up to the surface. Because it's only when we're open and surrendered and just accepting of the present moment can your inner voice actually give you the wisdom that's already there. Think of this non-judgmental space as we go through the 5 common beliefs that sabotage your ability to trust yourself. I'm on a freaking mission to do life differently, to do business differently, to strip away that incessant need to be relevant, visible, and hustling, to create a space where everyone is excited to choose the path that feels most aligned to their soul and their mission, whether that means being off social media, not climbing the corporate ladder, or climbing it. Whether that means being okay earning $70K a year and not feeling pressure to hit 6 figures because everyone says you should. I want you to trust yourself and be okay with your path or spiritual revelations and answers looking different than others around you. I want you to leave this episode thinking more about what you've been conditioned to believe and what kind of life you would love if there were no limits, rules, or judgment. Just a blank slate with no knowledge of any limit. I also hope you leave inspired to learn to trust yourself more. So here we go. This is the first common belief that I found for not trusting yourself, and that is thinking the answers lie outside yourself. The truth is, you already have all the answers you need. You do. And maybe you're like me where I thought this didn't apply. that other people have the answers because they're smarter or more experienced or more gifted. These are tactics the ego uses to distract us from trying something we're not used to. As soon as I started questioning those beliefs and allowing myself to practice acting on what my inner wisdom was saying, the downloads I received were unreal. My friend and I were texting the other day, and she said, I'm in a season where I'm tired of being spoken at, and I'm just in action mode on my own now. I love that she said this because it meant she was plugged into her soul and didn't feel the need to listen to anyone else's voice but her own. And that's what's so cool, is it's a natural byproduct of being plugged in. And I'm getting to that point too. How about you? I know we're not the only ones feeling tired of the messages being hurled at us. A lot of them lack spiritual grounding or empathy, and I think that's why it doesn't sit right anymore. There's a shift that's been happening, and many of us are craving simplicity and the power that comes from raw inner wisdom. We're starting to recognize that fulfillment comes from the personality acting in harmony with the soul. Here's one compelling reason it matters that we start trusting ourselves more and going within first for answers. First, not second, not third, but first. Every person has their own unique combination of desires, obstacles, beliefs, opportunities, lack of opportunities, resources, and on and on. It would be so silly to think that one or two paths fit all. It doesn't. No one except God, universe, can understand what you need and give you the answers you need. No one outside of yourself, not a friend, not a family member, only you and God. The world is like a candy shop where there are unlimited flavors, textures, and sizes. You wouldn't buy black licorice if you hated the taste, right? So why do we think we have to buy the black licorice if some expert says we do? You know deep down what you like or don't like, what kind of life you want to live. So let's stop buying the damn black licorice and get the watermelon sour belts instead, or whatever your preference is. And if you like black licorice, no biggie. This analogy may seem weird, so replace it with whatever candy you don't like. So remember, you have the answers and you are more powerful and capable of making decisions for yourself than you might believe. Okay, now we're going to belief number 2. That is thinking there's a right path being in quotations, to create a business, course, book, or anything creative. Maybe because our options are so unlimited, it's paralyzing and hard to choose a path and go for it. So we'd rather have someone else tell us. There's a study in the psychological literature that comes to mind about what happens if you're given more choices versus less. Is it actually better to have more choices? In the study, the researchers set up a table at the grocery store with 24 different jellies and jams, or some high number like that. And there was like a steal of a deal happening with them. So if you bought like a few, you would get one free or something of that sort, like some enticing offer. Then the researchers kept track of how many people bought jam. Then they set up a table with only 6 options, something like that, some smaller number. And can you guess which setup saw more purchases? The table with 6 options. What they found is having too many options creates a mind paralysis. We get overwhelmed and find it hard to calculate why one jelly or jam is better than the other. When you have that many options, decisions really come down to the minute details, and most people would rather skip out on the good deal and avoid exerting that extra energy. But when there's 6 options, it's much easier to weigh your pros and cons and pick one. So I wonder if a little of this is at play when it comes to choosing a career path. Is it just easier to go the way most people go, or is it easier to listen to experts because it seems they cut out the work of figuring things out? I know obviously like pressures and influence and all those things come into play as well, but our society is very much into efficiency and saving time. We've been conditioned to believe that because a certain path has worked out for someone else or for a group of people with certain qualifications like medical degree or a law degree, that the safest, most certain way to succeed is to follow that same path or get those same qualifications. I believed that for many years, that the only way to make an impact or succeed is to follow the path of an online influencer or get a graduate degree to have more authority. But those only bring impact or success when they support your honest vision. And notice how I said honest vision. There are many people I know who pursued PhDs because it's what they were told they needed to do, or they felt pressure from family. Then they ended up leaving their field altogether because in the end, they couldn't keep pretending it's what they wanted. Yet here they were 10 years in and $200,000 in debt to figure this out. It's unfortunate, right? But at the same time, I also know people who were working in corporate and felt called to serve people in a way that did require a PhD, and they love what they're doing. So it all depends on getting honest about what you want, what impact you want to create, then caring more about what feels right and aligns with what you value over what others think. There's no right or wrong path. There's only right or wrong for you, and you individually, uniquely, beautifully you. There are many people who have created unconventional lives and businesses that serve who they truly are. It's just we haven't allowed ourselves to find them and pay more attention to them. What we place our attention on shapes the perspective we have of what's possible and what the world's like. This reminds me of Charlie Trotter. He's a really famous chef, but he had a really fancy restaurant in Detroit, and he had Michelin star restaurants. Like, he's a big deal. But I heard a story that he brought inner city kids to cook with him and to watch him cook and to see how he runs his restaurant. And when he was asked why he did that, he said, because I want these kids to see a different way of life, to see a new possibility, to see a new way of being creative. And he knew the power of seeing the example of what you could do with your life. And it's the same exact thing. Start looking for those people who've created wonderful lives that don't look like everyone else. Learn about their journey in life. For me, I watched Dolly Parton's documentary. She's an incredible lady because she always just followed what felt good to her, and she creatively expressed herself in the way that she felt right. There are so many other people I could think of. That's just on the top of my mind right now. But learn about people's journeys and lives and get from it bits of inspiration that you can use to follow what you're supposed to be doing. When you place attention on those people, you'll start to feel it's more normal to follow your soul and then feel inspired for your life. It's also like when I started following more entrepreneurs who have families. For the longest time, I questioned if it was possible to have a family and a business. And then I realized the reason why I thought that is because almost everyone I followed were people who decided to not have kids. So I made it a point to seek out people who've done both and pay more attention to them, so it would become more normal. People like Sarah Blakely, Kathy Heller, or Dr. Benjamin Hardy. He has like 6 kids and he's written like so many books and he's doing like amazing things. So now that I finally clicked into that truth, it almost feels like I'm starting from zero again, getting to know the people I want to serve, testing out different creations and making sure it both serves and is something I want to do. If you're listening right now and you feel trapped, like you have no choice but to travel the path you're on, this is your permission slip to question that. Is the path you're on what you want, or is it what you were told was right? So the third common belief that sabotages your ability to trust yourself is giving too much power to technology. As a society, technology has been given so much power that it's hard to see life without it as a possibility. My life is being absolutely changed right now by the book Deep Work by Cal Newport. He points out that deep, meaningful work is at a disadvantage due to a technopoly. He got this idea from late communication theorist and New York University professor Neil Postman, who says, we as a society were no longer discussing the trade-offs surrounding new technologies, balancing the new efficiencies against the new problems introduced. If it's high tech, we begin to instead assume that it's good. Case closed. Postman continues to say, technopoly eliminates alternatives to itself in precisely the way Aldous Huxley outlines in Brave New World. It doesn't make those alternatives illegal. It does not make them immoral. It does not even make them unpopular. It makes them invisible and therefore irrelevant. This was so powerful to read because he's essentially saying that our obsession with tech, it eliminates alternatives, like the possibility of alternatives, because we've equated it as being invisible and therefore irrelevant, which is crazy, right? Crazy to think. Most people attach relevancy to being on social media and the internet, and those who aren't get the label irrelevant. Businesses that don't adopt social strategies are seen as archaic and behind the times. Our culture is internet centrist, a term that I've taken from Newport's book, who he took from social critic Evgeny Morozov. So now most people believe being constantly connected is a necessity because you don't want to be invisible or irrelevant. It's become a survival mechanism. So of course, we started following people online, seeing their big followings as success and being relevant, wanting to feel relevant too. So we listened to their messages over our own wisdom. And before you know it, believe that the answers lie in the seductive world of the internet. Evgeny Morozov says, it's this propensity to view the internet as a source of wisdom and policy advice that transforms it from a fairly uninteresting set of cables and network routers into a seductive and exciting ideology. Wow. See, that's the power we've given to something. Rather than keeping it within the boundary of a tool to help support my vision or my work, we've morphed it into an ideology that starts influencing us instead. This makes it so tough to leave. I find it so attractive, the idea of getting off of social media and, not connecting to email as much, but it is really hard to act on that. Newport continues to say in his book that by embracing not being on the internet, you've marked yourself, as Neil Postman would say, invisible and therefore irrelevant. But that's not true. You're not invisible or irrelevant if you're not on social media or connected to email 24/7. Cal Newport has never opened one social media account, and he's made an incredible impact and built an amazing community. Connection can be made with or without social media or the internet. What happens if we take that power away from technology? I'm not saying you have to quit it altogether. Not even Newport says that in his book. It's more about prioritizing connection to that still small voice, getting clear on your purpose each day. And once you get that clarity, then asking yourself if a tool or program would be useful, if any. I'm having this deep talk with myself right now as we speak, wondering if I need social media or constant connectivity to create the community and products I want to create. And what about you? If the answer is no, then we must honor that. All right, the fourth belief I want to talk about is feeling pressure to follow someone else's path. This goes in line with giving too much power to technology. We also give too much power to influencers and thought leaders over the fate of our business and lives. I've bought quite a few courses. I've gone to various lives events over the years and paid for a coach. These are all inherently great things. Investing in growth and being around people who are doing what you want to do is more valuable than just about anything out there. But it's when buying the courses, attending the conferences, and having the coach replaces the need for effort and following your inner guidance system. There have been a few courses I bought, and they ended up not helping, mainly because I thought throwing money at something would solve the problem. But really, I didn't have clarity around the life I wanted or the business I wanted. So no matter what I bought, it wouldn't give me the answer to the actual question I needed to ask myself. A lot of times we focus on the processes or small day-to-day stuff to feel productive while dancing around the true work we need to do, or we throw money at it, right? Work that no one can answer or create for us through a course or a plan or a map. And even if you're thinking, oh, well, I don't really want a business, I don't really want these other things, this still applies, even if the person you give power to is your neighbor or a friend from church. You may find yourself about to click buy now on a muumuu style dress because that's what you saw a gorgeous Upper East Side housewife from your church wear. And even though the shape looks like a glorified trash bag, it just looks so flawless on her. Not even taking a second to consider the fact your soul actually doesn't like trash bag style dresses with no shape or form, but you stuff that down because you feel pressure to be like her. And yes, you could probably tell this is a little experience of mine from a few years ago. I didn't actually buy the muumuu dress, but I was super close. So maybe you're like me and have felt the pressure to create a 6 or 7 figure business or create certain digital products because influencers tell you it's a smart way to reach your audience. But secretly, you hate the idea and wouldn't even buy it yourself. So much weight to carry, right? How about we remove every bit of pressure or influence for just a second and get down to what we truly want? Imagine everything you want and desire is represented as a bright, big ball of light. And now imagine that an influencer or someone you look up to or whoever you look for answers is holding that light. Now, I want you to imagine yourself gently reaching out your hands, pick up that light and glide it back in your heart. You're taking back ownership of those desires and those things that really resonate with you. Now for the important questions. What does a great life look like to you? I'll pause just for a second. What does a great life look like and feel like for you? I was speaking with someone from the Good Space community the other day, and she was saying how she was experiencing the same questions I was, questioning what experts say, questioning that as a business owner, does she need to keep reaching for the next level? Does she constantly need to be stretching to the next level, or is it okay to stay where she's at? Can she make impact with the people she's serving? Or if she doesn't go for the big numbers, is she going to be considered uncommitted or lazy? First of all, no to all those questions. You don't need to do anything you don't want to. If impacting on a smaller scale feels good to you, then do that. If you're someone that actually doesn't really care about impacting or serving people and you'd rather keep something as a hobby, then admit that. That doesn't mean you're lazy for wanting it if that's what you truly want. If someone were to tell me that they want to serve 10 million customers in their business, then not wanting to make money, I would consider that a block. But for someone who's like, I don't really care about business or any of those things and I just want to do a hobby, then that's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that. So the answer to those questions all depend on what you truly want and the life you imagine living. It's not her fault she feels this. It's not mine or yours either. We've been drenched in this culture of cutting corners and following the lead of others. But you and I, we're not followers. I'm going to repeat that again. You and I are not followers. We feel that deeper resonance within us and know we have a unique calling. We know we're meant to lead the story of our own lives instead of passing the responsibility to someone else. But our society rewards shortcuts and shallow work. What we need is to honor again that deep work, those moments where we get still and allow our environment to be still. We shut off the phones, get off social media and focus without interruption. We give our full power of truth and spirit to what we feel called to create or do. What you've been sold as the way to live your life isn't the only way. You are a creator. There are so many combinations and paths to the same result. And God, universe, doesn't want you to hate the way that you get to the thing you want. That's not the point. The journey's meant to be as good feeling and stretching and just good as possible. You're not meant to be miserable. So focus right now on what lights you up. If you could have any kind of life without any limits or rules of any kind, what would it look like? For me, I would love to read books all day, then talk about them with a group of like-minded people and write articles or books based on the information I'm learning. I love condensing information from a lot of different places, applying it to my life, and then creating articles and books that share what I think is valuable for others. Not in a way that tells people the path they should take, but in a way that's like, hey, I found this interesting and it helped me. I'm going to leave it here for you in case it helps. I know I'm grateful for the time someone shares knowledge that truly changed my life, and I want to pay that forward. And sometimes there are topics where people just feel overwhelmed even trying to start researching it. And I've had that with certain topics, and I'm so grateful for those people who love diving into it and then giving me shorter bits of information or just more simplified versions of the information. And I can learn just as much that way. So it makes me so happy. In addition to doing that kind of work, I would love to only work part of the day, so I can spend more time with family and have time for reflection and creativity and good conversations with my community or friends. And I also want to make a lot of money having that be my life. I don't know when that's going to happen, how that's going to happen, if it's going to happen. What we desire can evolve and change as our souls evolve and change. So right now, my focus is doing as many of those things that feel good as possible and trusting the rest will unfold. That feels super aligned for me. Living a simple and quiet inner and outer life while also providing aligned value that I get paid for. Now that I clarified the life I want, I can ask myself if getting expert help or guidance from a course or a group would support that inner vision. Then I can research and check in with my inner wisdom. And if I get a no, I'd have to honor that and then just keep moving forward with what I do know. And if I hear a hell yes, then I can sign up for that course or that group and move forward. Okay, so this is the fifth and final belief that sabotages your ability to trust yourself. Making decisions out of scarcity. Oh my goodness. I am so guilty of this, and I still am, although I've made a lot of strides. But if you struggle to trust yourself like I have, then you can probably come up with a few experiences where you made a decision out of scarcity instead of abundance. Scarcity means you felt something was off or knew deep down you didn't want to do something, but did it anyway. Abundance is saying no or yes to things only when you feel expansive and unhindered in your energy. I've made so many decisions out of scarcity, taking on copywriting clients when I felt like something wasn't right, or saying yes to commitments when I only felt 60% on board. Each of those times, I literally felt more misery than had I said no. And you think I would learn my lesson, but I've had to do so many things where I wasn't really 100% there. And I was like, oh, I wish I said no, but I think I'm getting better. So we'll see. If you're like me, then those decisions are made out of fear of lack, fear of failure. There's even times we can say no to an amazing opportunity because we fear we can't handle the success. This is what I would recommend just to start. Start small. So that's the first thing. You don't want to overwhelm yourself or do too many things at once. But here are a few things that I practiced that I found to help with that. One is leaving a small bit of food on your plate when you're eating instead of eating every last bite, to practice the idea of having enough and knowing you'll have other chances to eat again. Don't do this if it's triggering. I don't want to bring up anything for someone if this is a triggering action, but it was something that helped me practice feeling abundant because my dad, he was in the military at age like 16 or 17. And growing up, he told me that they had to eat every bit on their plate in like 10 minutes. Like they didn't have much time to eat. And so he got in the practice of eating everything really fast and all of it down to like the cleanest plate. Like he couldn't leave anything. And so I picked up that same kind of habit, not eating super fast, but like I felt like I had to eat everything, even if I was overstuffed. When I started leaving a small bit of food on my plate as a practice of being like, you know, I have enough. I'm good. It actually like, I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, but when am I going to eat again? Or like all of these scarce, thoughts kept coming into my head. And so after a while, I was able to leave the piece of food and I was like, oh, I know I'm going to eat again soon. Or you know what? If I want to get something more, I can get up and go do it. And it felt like so empowering to me. And so that's the only reason why I recommend it. If this resonates with you, yeah, it was just something that helped me practice feeling abundant. Once that feeling of abundance though locked in, I did stop doing it. Like now I don't judge or like try to focus on leaving anything. It just is a natural practice if I'm full or whatever. So that's that. Another way that you can practice abundance is donating clothes that you haven't worn in over a year, and then trusting that with the space you make in your closet, you'll find outfits that make you feel more aligned. This one can be hard, but it actually feels really good once you do it. I've done it a few times, and I think I'm due to do another clean out again, but I try to practice, okay, I have abundance. I can get, clothes that fit me more and are more aligned with who I want to become. And I just try to give myself abundant thoughts when I do that. And yeah, it feels so good afterwards. Another thing is to donate money to charity or church to practice that energetic exchange of faith. Because when you give money to someone else, it's a tangible way to say, I support you, or I know I have enough, so I want to share my abundance with you. And that kind of open, loving energy opens the channels for the universe to give more back to you in ways you didn't expect. Okay, I want you to try one or a few of those out and comment in the show notes to let me know how it goes. And if you have other ideas that pop in your head as well for practicing abundance, leave those in the comments too. I'd love to see what you've tried that has helped you a lot. So there you have it, 5 common ways we can sabotage ourselves from trusting ourselves. Did any of these resonate with you? Do you have any questions? Don't hesitate to ask or share in the comments of our show notes, which are linked in the show notes on the app. It'll take you to a blog post where you can comment. You never know who you will inspire or who else has the same question. You can also email me at francesca@findyourgoodspace.com. And if you think that this message in this episode would lift the spirits or plant a seed for a friend of yours, please share this with them. I think it's always wonderful to share what we feel inspired by, and we would really appreciate that.
Now it's time for an affirmation.
I intend to trust my inner voice at all times and in all places. I let it guide every action I take.
If you found today's tips inspiring or thought-provoking, share it right now on social media and make sure to tag me at Francesca A. Phillips or at Find Your Good Space, and also weigh in the comment section at findyourgoodspace.com. You can find links in the show notes. And if you have a spiritual or mindfulness problem that you want me to unpack on an upcoming The Good Space episode, or an awesome manifesting story you want to share, give my podcast phone line a ring right now at 917-719-0867. Also, don't forget to download my free morning routine guide. It's what helped me reduce my anxiety, increase productivity, and so much more. The link to everything I mentioned is in the show notes. See you soon.